Welcome back to the Flyers Nitty Gritty podcast, Gettin Gritty Wit It with your host, Yariv, Wolok, and I have some returning guests. This is going to be a fun episode today. Welcome back to the show, Craig Eagles, QJMHL scout, and returning guest, Craig Eagles. Craig, how you doing?
Great to be back, and thanks so much for having me back. Really looking forward to talking some Flyers and a whole bunch of, World Junior stuff as well.
Awesome. Excited to have you back. And I could have flubbed that a little bit harder, I think. And Russ Cohen from Sportsology. Russ, thank you for coming back to the show. Excited to have you. And everybody who listens to this should know Russ. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, right. Doing great.
Awesome. So we actually have a lot to talk about, which is really cool. I'm not going to lie. Like, we were chatting a little before this, and you could see there's just a lot of conversation, and I'm excited about that. Hockey's officially back. I do want to start off, and I want to do a little bit of a retrospective just because I have both of you on, and I know both of you are focused on younger talent for sure. I know Russ particularly, I know for sure we've talked quite a bit about prospects, and same with you, Craig. And obviously it's what you do primarily. I want to talk about World Juniors. I do want to stay specifically on kind of Flyers topics because I know we can go all day, but feel free to throw other commentary in there. But, obviously USA comes in, takes it. Flyers had 3 picks in the competition overall. We had Emil Andre playing in Sweden as one of the younger guys, less impactful, but then 2 big names, Cam York, captain of Team USA, and then Bobby Brink, both contributing. Both had a huge amount of success. I'm going to put it to you first, Russ. What do you think about, let's just talk Team USA. You can touch a little bit about Emil Andre and then maybe your overall thoughts on the tournament. And then Craig, I'll go to you right after that.
Yeah, I mean, Team USA was a really good team effort. Nate Lehman did a great job in the sense that there was a lot of continuity there. He picked guys like Faber and Ryan Johnson and guys who are used to playing with each other at the same university, like at Minnesota. So there were 3 Minnesota guys, and you had a couple Providence guys, and in like Moynihan and Berard, and you had Michigan guys and Cam York and Matty Berniers. And I felt like there was a lot of chemistry there that maybe some of the other all-star teams didn't have. As far as Brink goes, I felt like he was misused. I was pretty vocal about it. It didn't change because once they had that third line that they felt was clicking and they were letting Farinacci run it, it was going to be hard to change it. And that's fine. They initially had Brink on the off wing, which I hated, and they did change that. They put him back on right wing, and that's where he plays. Look, he played a really good, gritty style, but, you cut down the amount of shots he was going to be able to take a game based on ice time and everything else. So, I felt like he was a good soldier, but, as a returning guy, you probably want 5 to 7 shots a game out of him, and, you get your goals for sure, but that didn't happen. So he did the most with, I felt like, the ice time he was given, and that's fine. I mean, Andre, I thought, had one really bad turnover late in his last game there. But I felt like he skated well, moved the puck well, passed it well, thought the vision was there. He's definitely developing, and he definitely can come back. And I think next year he'll play even a more prominent role, but he got a good amount of playing time. And I think that's, for development's sake, that's really good. And then, flipping back to the US again with York did really well. York maybe didn't add as much offense as we would expect. He certainly, had points and added, assists, but he has been trying to round out his game. And I think he proved that to the coaching staff. So he did a good job. And, he was playing the point on the power play, playing top pairing. But I also just felt like he was doing other things. Now, there were a couple of defensive laps, but really, I think I only counted like 2 in the tournament that really amounted to anything. So I thought he had a really good tournament. I think the strength that he added helped. I actually think he still needs a little more strength, though. I think, for the Flyers fans that think, hey, look, Cam York gained, 10 pounds of muscle, and look how he's playing and look how smart he is. That's all great. But if you want him to be a top 4 defenseman, as you can see with the current guys in Philly, you're going to want to give him more development time. If that's the AHL next year, that's fine.
Fair enough. And I think you can look at those mistakes as well, Russ, and think, hey, he's playing against the best young players in the world. He's probably due for 1 or 2 of them, right?
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Well said. All right, Craig, what do you think?
Well, I see, and I don't like comparables or comparisons.
Me neither. I never use them.
No, but I'll talk a little bit about similarities.
Yeah,
I like similarities. I see, and again, I fell asleep during the championship game. It's been a struggle, but I watched a lot. I went back and watched some tape on both. Great players. Brink really sees the game well, and he's a gritty. I think Russ hit the nail on the head. He's a gritty player, and he plays bigger than his frame. There's no question about that. For him to make an impact, I think at the next level, there has to be an increase in explosion and speed. He needs to get into those seams a little quicker. But I thought he played a great 2-way game, especially in the championship game. And his vision and the little subtle plays that he makes, and he has a very active stick in the defensive zone. There's one sequence where he back-checked and really did a great job. And you don't see that very often with those. Well, you do in good quality 2-way wingers. You do see that effort on the back check. I just think that he's going to have to get a lot more pace to his game if he wants to have an impact at the NHL level. As far as York, and getting back to Brink, I see like a little bit of Phil Kessel in his skating style, not Phil Kessel's speed, but just in his skating style and how he sees the game and how he moves the puck a little bit. But I'd love to see Phil Kessel's speed in a player like Bobby Brink. Now, going to Cam York, I really think, I kind of see a similarity between, I know Brian Leach is a little bit taller, but I see some similarities there. And with me, it's the strength and his speed and pivoting. Is he going to be able to defend at the NHL level and log those big minutes? Now, I could see him playing beside Myers and that type of thing, but it's just he's going to have to get bigger and stronger and faster and all those things. Great vision, good puck mover, can run the power play. Just his pivoting to the boards and into the middle, just little things right now. And then I think every 18, 19-year-old kid is working on those little things to make the jump to the next level.
Yeah, and you know what, Craig? The one thing I'll say is with Brink, he does have more explosion this year than he did last year. So now I do speak to people that believe that it may only get slightly better, but he could still make it to the NHL and still be pretty good. I agree with you. If you want him to be better than that, then that probably has to be better than that. But they all believe he's going to make it. Now, the Leach thing, what's interesting about Leach is because in that era, he used to sort of, I don't know, I guess he would get overlooked at times because of what you would call more complete guys and like Chelios and those guys. But what the interesting thing for me was about Leach was it was similar to Carlson. You may not have looked at him as a stalwart defenseman, but he always got back on the play and he was great at puck retrieval. And because he could skate better than most guys on the ice, he pulled it off.
And great stick positioning, right?
Yeah.
Brian Leach's stick was just incredible, knocking pucks down and always in the passing lane. And I see a lot of that in York, where breaking up the 2-on-1, active stick on the offensive blue line, all those little things. And he thinks the game so well. He really, really does. And it's great to see. As a Canadian, I woke up and they're celebrating, and then I didn't see the barrel coming out. I didn't see that. And
yeah, I didn't stay up late enough for that. I went
different opinions, right? Opinions.
Yeah, I went straight for the conference call, and that didn't happen until late. So then I just bailed completely. What I could tell you about it is because the next day I wrote about it, and so I was transcribing what Nate Lehman said, and that goes back to like Ron Rolston days from like '07. He brought the barrel in, and it was this whole story about the Sahara Desert, how they go from barrel to barrel to barrel, and so they took it game by game. They figured out how to use barrels as a hockey cliche, but it wasn't anything against Canada, but because I guess the can that they used had the Canadian logo, some people were trying to make more of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wrote a little article on stage celebrations and cellies and all this stuff in minor hockey. I didn't mention any stage cellies or anything like that at the junior or NHL level, and I got ripped for that. And then all of a sudden the barrel comes out, and I'm just like, holy geez. Anyway, unwritten rules, I guess.
Leave it to America.
Well, I'll say this. I covered Nate McKinnon in a Q game, and when the game was over, I asked him because there was a point in the game when he scored a goal and people were throwing things on the ice. They were throwing trash, they were throwing all kinds of stuff. And I asked him about that, and he's a kid, and he was just like, that happens all the time. I don't worry about
that. He used to it, right? Used to it.
Yeah, he was used to it already. He was like, no big deal.
It's funny.
My longtime, here's a quick story for him. God rest his soul, my longtime coach and mentor, Dale Turner, played against in the Memorial Cup playdowns, and it was Memorial Cup was different back then. But Dale was at it, and they were throwing batteries. They went like taped batteries up, and were throwing batteries on the ice, and guys, and it was just incredible. Some of the stories that Dale and how dirty he played against Guy Lafleur and went up against Guy Lafleur. So Dale played center, and Dale flipped his elbow pad because Lafleur would slash him in right in here where no protection.
Yeah.
So Dale flipped it over, and he'd still kind of let on that it hurt, but it didn't really. So anyway, stuff on the ice and the old time hockey, I guess.
Yeah. That's awesome. So let me ask you guys something. And I'll throw this one at both of you since we were talking about York. What do you think it signifies a player like him who, again, he's a little younger for his age group as well, to get picked as captain as well? Maybe Russ, I don't know if you want to go first on this one.
Yeah, I think Lehman knew him from college and also from the U.S. program, so he felt comfortable with him. He's a mature kid. I've never heard of any problems with Cam York. I've never heard anything but great things with Cam York. So I think it was a good choice. I felt like it was a good choice right from the beginning. I think it was smart that Lehman didn't pick one of his guys like Moynihan or Berard. Not that they couldn't have done it, but I think he would have just come under scrutiny had he done it. So I was fine with it. And I thought that York did a good job. Now, did I think York, there was a game, maybe the one before the finals, I can't remember which one, but where they picked him as player of the game, and I wouldn't have picked him as player of the game. And that's something where I felt like that was going on too much in that tournament. Like if you were captain of the team, your team almost picked you at least once or twice, even if you didn't deserve it to be player of the game. But there was a game where Matt Boldy definitely deserved to be player of the game, and they picked York anyhow.
Interesting. Craig, what do you think?
Well, if you're a leader, you're a leader. And I think he showed that throughout the tournament. He really did. And you look at all the leadership groups from each team, and they brought their own style of play and their own leadership. Obviously with Canada, losing their captain, a horrible injury to Kirby Daw. And I really hope he's going to be okay and get back. He had a pretty good impact with the Blackhawks in a very limited role last year. So, but when you lose a guy like that, obviously all those players are, captains or associate captains and all this on their club team. So they know how to be leaders, but you go above and beyond really. And you do it with your game and your character. And I think Cam York did a great job.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting. Something Russ you mentioned earlier is that they did win. USA 1 through D, and I thought it was interesting that you said that he actually played a more defensive game in this tournament. I think it's quite appropriate for the way they won as well. And maybe it is something they just made a bigger focus on. Maybe he wasn't focused on being as offensive since the team itself was pretty high impact.
Yeah,
already.
Yeah, I mean, you had certain guys that could take the puck up the ice on their own, like Berniers as a kid, as the youngest could do it. So, I do think that was a factor.
Yeah, that kid looks good as well. Yeah, he looks very good. All right, so let's talk about some fun topics here. We'll go a little bit Flyers, and then I want to talk Metro. So, speaking of Flyers, there was actually, Craig, obviously this is pretty exciting for us. I'm sure we'll probably talk about it later in the year. There was an outdoor game finally officially announced for February 3rd. This is going to be in Lake Tahoe. It'll be at 3 p.m., I believe, on NBC for anybody who's wondering here in the States. Pretty exciting news. Craig, I'm going to go to you first on this one. What do you think about an outdoor game? Flyers, Bruins, new division.
Oh, I think it's going to be fantastic. If you look back at the Fenway experience, that rivalry is still there. It's heated. And two great teams. And let me start off by saying this: the Flyers have the perfect blend of talent and veteran impact players right now on their hockey club. And I think the Flyers this year are really going to surprise a lot of people. And it's really not going to be a surprise because they're that deep. And it starts between the pipes, obviously. You look at the Bruins and what they can bring to an outdoor game. Obviously, the Fenway Park experience was incredible. It really was, to see two good teams going head to head. And, I don't know if there's always different opinions with regards to outdoor games, ice conditions and all this stuff. You put those aside, it's the entertainment. And I really think the players enjoy it, and they make they make the game what it is. And essentially, it's going to be a big difference not having Chara in the lineup from a Bruins perspective. But from an outdoor game perspective, I think it's great for the game and it's great for the players.
Yeah, agreed. I'm super excited about it, actually. And I was hoping they would leverage these for more revenue. And I think we got lucky here. Russ, what do you think?
Yeah, I did write the book on the Winter Classic. So I've gone to every Winter Classic except for St. Louis. And that's only because I went to the Centennial Classic that year in Toronto. But my website has covered them all, and we've covered a fair amount of the other outdoor games too, the Stadium Series. I've been to probably even 3 or 4 of those, including the Flyers' last one against the Penguins. I'm loving the fact that they're having it. I'm going to have withdrawals that I can't be there. So that's going to be hard. I do love the games. Craig is right. The players do love it. Even for there's always these fans that say, oh, it's a waste of time. It's this, it's that. I always say, look, when they stop filling the stadiums, they'll stop playing those games. Now, this is one time where they can't fill the stadium because there is no stadium. But that's okay, because obviously the network and NBC and sponsor and Honda wanted it because it is something different. It's cool. I guess it is a good game to still market. They're going to have an East game and a West game right out there. So that's good. I mean, this is a positive. I do think the matchup will be fun. You'll have Marchand, who, if they're smart, they'll show the miscue on the shootout. I was at that game covering it and was a little stunned that it happened that way. And Marchand tried to sort of not act like he was mad post game, but we knew he was fuming, and it was fun. And those kinds of things will be great. I think the weather will be good. It'll be a fun event. And I really do think in the time that we're in, it will be nice to see something like this, and will be interesting because there won't be any bowl games or things like that. And so the NHL will once again, and this is the same reason they had a Winter Classic in the first place, is because they looked at the calendar and saw, on January 1st, there's not a lot of good football games. there's an opportunity here. The NBA owns Christmas. We could do that. And so they have owned New Year's Day ever since they created the game in '08. And so now they looked at the schedule again and said, you know what? We could really own this little thing and, help prop up our sport and get, more viewers at a time where that's all we could really do is just get more viewers. We can't sell any tickets. So I really do think it was smart.
Russ, what's it like to cover those games and talk to the players? Do they relive those early days in the game? And do you think it really means a lot for those players?
They do. I'll start at the one in Chicago because for that one, Antti Raanta wanted to play in the worst way for Chicago. And he thought he was going to play. And it ended up being Crawford instead. And he was mad. And he left the Blackhawks. And I think that was part of the reason he left the Blackhawks. With the one at Fenway, that was the first actual fight that ever happened at a Winter Classic with Sean Thornton. And was a Carcillo, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And that I was up in the upper area by where the Flyers suites were at that time. So I had a pretty good view of it. That was fun. I was also out at the Green Monster. We had a tour of the stadium. So I was inside the Green Monster at one point and got to check all that out. That was kind of amazing. But as far as, the atmosphere was just great. And then, you get to here in Philly and Brizgalov, when he was told he wasn't going to be the Winter Classic starter, he came out of that little conference that I guess he had with Laviolette and walked right by us, and he had a piece of chewing gum and he just jammed it in the garbage can as hard as he could and left. And I'm telling you all these things because that's the passion that these players have for wanting to play in this game, right? Both goalies will get custom masks. Only one will really get to use it, except for when they warm up, right?
Yeah.
But they all want to have that moment. It's really important to them. And it's a family time, too. Now, maybe this one, I don't know how much they'll be able to do. Will they have family skates? Those kinds of things have always been great. I've taken part in most of the media skates, and those are fun. I hope for the families they can have a skate because the players really do like that. All those things are super important, but I just see nothing but passion out of the players. And, there's been a trade during the Winter Classic in Toronto. The guy, who was it? He used to play for the, he used to play for Colorado, defenseman. He warmed up and he got traded before the game started. But at least he got to warm up. Right. That was the big thing. They were like, well, at least we could put him in warm-ups and he could have that moment. And he comes in the locker room and he's traded.
John Michael Lyles.
Jan Lyles, right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's never happened before. It may never happen again. But there's always these things. Phaneuf actually got his contract extended the day before. So that was like a big deal before the Winter Classic. So there's always things that go on that seem to be important down the road. And it's just a very big stage, and you can't get much bigger. And look, the cost is great. It costs $1 million for the NHL to get the ice machine there and all the days ahead of time that it takes, really weeks to get it right. And, usually they offset that cost with the tickets and everything else that goes around it. Now, all they could really do is sell the merch and usually the merch sells pretty well. Do that. And I'm going to assume now, because Honda has really stepped up here, that they maybe defrayed that $1 million cost. And that's probably good for the NHL because then, there is money to be made, but just not as much as you normally would make. Like I was at the last one in the Cotton Bowl and I think it was 80 something thousand there. So in Dallas, Texas, and that was amazing.
Yeah.
It's interesting with all these opportunities to overturn revenue. I was thinking about that even with this Winter Classic. It's there's opportunities here for nerds like myself, right? Or even people who are younger than me, right? Who they want to watch the Flyers. They want to even go to practices, right? We used to be able to go to the Flyers practice, can't really go anymore. Do you think there's an opportunity to maybe sell access remotely, through camera stuff, giving, Kind of like what we just saw a scrimmage, right? We saw a scrimmage on television.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think that's a really good idea. I think I would try and do that. I think for Flyers fans, if you remember, Elliott started the last one, right? Because that was the thing where they just, I think they felt like they were protecting Carter Hart a little bit and not having him play in fluky conditions. And Elliott had a great game and he beat the Penguins. Now this will be Carter Hart's one. So there is going to be some extra marketing available to the league, to Flyers fans for that. And let's face it, the league markets the hell out of the Flyers for good reason, because their fans buy things. They buy a lot of things.
It's true.
I hope that the cameras, the lead up to, the Winter Classic and the behind the scenes documentary style, obviously the Bruins have Behind the B, but I think that's another way that the lead up to that is just incredible. And the all access behind the scenes with all those series were really, really special and unique. And
I don't know if they're going to be able to do that now, because then you're allowing outside people in the locker room.
Right.
And so they may not allow that now unless they just clearly use game footage and maybe practice footage and when they go to the bus. But they can't do much else, because I don't think they're going to be allowed in the locker room.
You know what I was thinking of though? Remember they did they had the NBC special about the outdoor game where they did all mic'd up players and they kind of put together a narrative of the game kind of after the fact. That was really well done. Maybe we'll see stuff like that where it's footage that's kind of edited and narrated.
I mean, when we wrote the book, we actually wrote about, there's another author that helped me with it, Mike Del Dufo, and he wrote about all the 24/7 episodes. And, for some people who didn't have HBO, they really enjoyed that. I think they've done a good job since, but nobody's done it like 24/7. Right. Nobody.
Agreed.
And hopefully each organization and really credit all the NHL organizations for upping their game from a social media standpoint.
Oh yeah.
With the return to play in the playoffs and Stanley Cup run and all that. But hopefully they can steal some of that footage, because they're behind the scenes right now. So, and those cameramen and they're in the bubble, so to speak. So hopefully they can, share some footage and some content. Who knows? Well,
they could definitely use nostalgia, or I like to say prey on fans with nostalgia. I'm one that can have that happen to me. But at the Fenway one, especially, like I posted some pictures the other day, but I have others where like I was at a practice and I just have a picture of like just Tim Thomas, just alone, him in net. And it just started to snow. It didn't snow during the game, but it snowed at that practice.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of interesting. And I have others. I have a few isolated, cell shots like of just some players on the ice, just kind of having fun and goofing around. And those kinds of images are the ones that when you're at home really do hit home. Like, hey, that's great.
Nice, very nice. All right. Well, I think let's take 1 second here. I just want to thank our sponsors, Jim's Steaks on South. Thanks, Jim's, for sponsoring us. If anybody isn't aware, they are Flyers fans. I say it all the time. That's why we work with them in general, and it's why they agree to work with us. So check out Jim's Steaks on South. All right. So next topic, I do want to talk about the Flyers a little bit here. And Russ, maybe I'll stick primarily to you. Craig, I'll throw some questions at you here too. But really the thought is the Flyers kind of put together some line combinations. There was a scrimmage on TV here locally, Flyers versus the Flyers. We'd see some combination. I really want to focus though on the veterans here. I want to focus on Giroux specifically. Right now he is kind of lined up playing with Kevin Hayes and Joel Farabee as the second line. Now, I see the Flyers kind of balancing out their middle six. Craig, if you're not aware, the Flyers kind of balance out their middle six right now. It's JVR, Nolan Patrick, and Voracek as the third line. And then the second line is, like I said, top line is Lindblom, Couturier, and Konechny. That's what the Flyers are rolling with at the moment. I see the Flyers kind of spreading out their vet. Russ, I'm going to throw this to you first. Where do you see Claude Giroux this season kind of as that role? Like maybe he'll go back up with Couturier, but right now he's obviously being relied upon to be a kind of a play driver on the second line. How did you think of that line from the other night? And what do you think about Giroux leading into this season?
I think the line was good, but I do think, the first 10 minutes it doesn't work. AV's going right back to Couturier and Giroux. Like he's gonna just reflex back to that. But here's what I think about Giroux. I felt last year, and I didn't write it and I didn't say it because sometimes it's unimportant, but I felt like he came in a little spongy. I mean, he had a kid. Sometimes dads don't get to work out as hard in that first year. I would know. I'm not a dad. I have dogs and cats and rabbits, but I hear about it, and I hear about it from players. And so I felt like he was a little spongy. Not to say he was out of shape, but maybe could have just been in a little better shape. And I don't think it really hurt him. But I could see now this year he is trimmer than last year. And so I do feel like he had more of a chance. Now, he said, hey, he got to go to Ottawa and really focus there. Hey, whatever it is, it's like when you get to his age, you always have to challenge yourself every year. Just as a 30-year-old, I remembered I put on 15, 20 pounds. It just all of a sudden I woke up and it seemingly was there. And I've been doing everything the same. So then all of a sudden I'm just a schlub, right? I all of a sudden I had to start doing things I didn't do before just so I could lose that weight. But that happens to athletes too, just not as dramatic, right? But I felt like Giroux probably did that this year. And I do think that's good. I don't want to say what we saw from JVR is fool's gold, but I think there's a chance of that. I don't want to say he looks faster like they did on the broadcast because I didn't see it. I think JVR looks great when he knows nobody's going to check him. I think we have to be reasonable about that because that game didn't have that much, physicality in it, very little. And so I need to see JVR when, the Penguins are trying to take his head off,
right?
And see how that goes. But no, I think, and same with Nolan Patrick, I think he looks great. And I know everybody said, well, he took his first hit. He really didn't. The Penguins are going to target him. We'll see how he does after that. And if he does that well after that, then that's going to be great for him because everything else is there. Look, going in his draft year, I was higher on him than Hischier. I'll stick to that fact that I felt like he had more talent than Hischier. And whether it was going to take a little longer or not, and now clearly because of the injuries, it is, it's still not like Hischier is a superstar. I think he's a 53-point guy, something like that. And I do think Patrick could get more than that, but he does have to be healthy to do it. But I think we're seeing good things.
Love that. Well, I want to dig in a little more to Patch, but Craig, go ahead. I want you to speak on Giroux.
Well, let's talk line combinations, okay?
Okay.
You can balance out your line combinations all you want near the end of training camp. When the puck drops in game one, those line combinations, they're going to change.
Yep.
Okay. Russ hit the nail on the head. They're going to change. And I think when you have Giroux and Couturier and you have, their power play, guys, is going to be incredible. Mm-hmm. It really is. And you throw Patrick out there, they're going to be in a blender. The lines aren't going to be, and you mentioned those as their top three lines, holy jumpins. It's perfectly balanced out, skill, speed. Those guys hunt the puck down. And that's why they're going to have so much success and big on the back end. So I just think right now it's a little too early. And I know everyone's, all the teams and all the franchises are putting out line combinations. It's still early right now to be set on those lines. So I think you're going to see players move around if you're the Flyers a little bit near the start of the season.
Can I ask you this, Craig, as an outsider? How do you view Claude Giroux at this point in his career?
At this point in his career, I see him as someone that you don't want to bet against because he'll come back and he'll bite you in the ass. That's the type of player he is. A motivated Claude Giroux, a driven Claude Giroux is a player that you don't bet against. He's just he'll be there in the big moments because he's a big time player. And it's just, I think the best is yet to come, and you surround him with, the young energy players and the skilled players. I still think he's very serviceable, and I think he's going to have a big year.
I'll tell you the one thing I hated, Yariv, and every year it seems like the Flyers pick a guy they want to play in the middle on the power play and inevitably change it because their power play is never what they think it's going to be, and it always seemingly struggles out of the gate. I don't like Travis Konechny in the middle on the power play. Yeah, I get he knows how to deflect the puck, but he's not the biggest guy. And now all of a sudden you want him to take like a physical beating. Why wouldn't you put like JVR there, who's got great hands down low? And that's really the only place he scores lately is down low. Why wouldn't you put him there instead?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I actually said something similar the other day where I actually see him. I would like to see him, and this is not fair to him, but I would put him on the second unit in Giroux's position and run that same power play on the second unit and let him run it.
I would do that if I knew they were going to get more than like 35 seconds of power play, but I'm not sure they will.
That's the only issue. Yeah.
Right.
And he's got to be a trigger man. He's good on puck retrieval, good battler. Like he's the guy on the half boards or and
don't put him in front of the net.
No. It's incredible that some organizations still have guys out of position on the power play. It makes no sense to me.
Here's one guy I have considered putting in the middle, and I've never seen him there, and I don't know if he's great at deflecting, but I always thought Jake Voracek, if he could get in the slot and just get his shot off, I think his release is quick enough. He's strong enough. He can fight for space. I don't know how he is at deflections. I've never really seen him do anything.
I don't think he's great at it.
Right, exactly. But I think he can get the shot off quickly, kind of like Couturier did or like Braden Shen. Underrated Braden Shen, if you think about it, at least power play wise, he did very well here on that, being in the slot. At least he could do something. But I agree with you. I'm not a huge fan of TK. Even I'd prefer Patrick in the middle or even Hayes.
I think they would use Patrick in the middle again where they've used him before, but if they weren't so afraid of him getting it.
Yeah, that's the problem there too. It's like, who's gonna that's where I'm like, they must be very down on JVR.
I would think so, yes.
And I don't think it has to do with skill, and I don't think they necessarily look at his game and go, oh, I think it's for the reason that you talked about. And it's not a knock on him overall, but it's when somebody wants to dominate the ice against JVR, he seems to lose a lot of those battles, a lot of those 50-50 battles. And that is what's hurting him at this point in his career.
You would like to see him a little more intense, and maybe that's just not his way. He is a great guy. He's got a hell of a shot. He scored a lot of goals in the NHL, but I know Alain Vigneault, and I know he didn't like him last year.
Yeah.
He didn't tell me that, by the way. I'm just telling you by knowing the coach, he didn't really like him.
I mean, you could tell in the usage. Yep. He's not putting him in positions to succeed anymore,
Well, you just mentioned it, 50-50 puck battles. If you're not winning those, especially, and you want power play time, and you're not willing to go, get the puck and battle for the puck, you have to have the right blend of players and to go and dig the puck out to get it to your skilled guys. And, again, I hate going back to the Bruins, but like a Jake DeBrusk, they have him below the dots on the power play because of that. And he'll stir up shit, in front of the net. And he's willing to take a beating and willing to retrieve pucks and take a hit to make a play. And if you're not willing to do that, then you shouldn't be on the power play.
I would agree. And I think that's been JVR's problem. I think overall he's at risk because this Flyers team is so good, quite frankly, or so deep. We'll see how good they are in retrospect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to ask you something, Yariv. I mean, sure. And this might sound ridiculous, but if you had to make a choice, let's say it came down to just any old game, but you had to choose between Michael Raffl and JVR, who are you choosing?
Michael Raffl.
And that's crazy, isn't it?
Oh yeah. And I that's a great, I love that question, Russ, because specifically Michael Raffl, nobody outworks Michael Raffl. Like you might be more talented than him, but you're not going to outwork him. And he's relatively talented.
Oh, he is.
So that's what I mean. He's a perfect bottom six player. That's JVR's problem is he is not going, if he does not change his game, evolve into being a grittier player, he is at risk of losing his career because he is a prime guy to get dropped to the bottom lines. Yeah. Maybe not because of his salary, but because of his size and his role. He needs to compete with these kids who are going to hit everything left and right.
Yep.
And speed.
Yes.
And speed.
Yeah.
Right? Skating ability. You know, like I hate to say it because he's a good player, but sometimes the game does pass you by from a speed perspective and pace. And more players are finding that out, unfortunately. And
the only thing I could say in the nicest possible way was when I saw the first scrimmage, I did kind of make a remark that I don't understand how JVR never gets faster.
But, you know,
whether it's by losing weight, you know, a lot of older players, as they start to age a little, will lose weight. They'll do a lot of different things to be faster on the ice, and he just never appears to get faster.
But it's so weird because some players, it doesn't seem to be a humongous issue. I guess it's probably the way they play, because I always think
it is the way you play, because it's how you get open, where you go on the ice, and where he needs to go on the ice, he does need to get there before the other guy.
Yes. And he does have the strength. But I think about a guy like Michael Hanzus. When that guy was young, he moved slow. You know, but he was always good. He played till he was like 40. He was always good. And I remember he was just always slow, like molasses. Like,
yeah, I mean, look, Yager wasn't fast, but you never could get the puck from him, so it didn't matter. Right.
That's a great point too. That's
and those two players think the game so well,
right?
And positioning and body position and inside position. Yep. Like, how many times did you see Yager just win? You know, and by just sheer determination, getting to the middle of the ice, and the same thing. You know, just perfect body position, and guys would be like, how did he get there? Well, he used his head to get there.
Right. He knows.
I like that. He knows. So actually, all right, so let's move on here to the defense. We're digging into the offense a lot. I really just want to talk about the main issue here, which is really Ivan Provorov. And Craig, if you're not aware, the Flyers, obviously they lost Matt Niskanen. That's old news.
Yeah.
But the Flyers are kind of, you know, there's an open spot in that top pairing with Provorov. There's a bunch of options. The most recent option has been Justin Braun. Ghost has been tried in there 2 days in practice in a row, which was a little bit surprising. But I have a theory that maybe Provorov is the one who kind of had a conversation with AV, said, who have you played with in the past? That's a guy he definitely has success with. Also, from a leadership standpoint, you know, if you're friends with Ghost, you think maybe you can pull him forward. There's Ghost. There's Myers who get a chance. There's Sanheim, who probably is the second best defenseman on the team, but you ask him to play out of position, and then you kind of weaken your second pairing. So there's all kind of options there. Russ, I'm going to go for you first. What do you think about Provorov and Ghost getting tried out? We don't really know why he's out. I suspect it's for COVID reasons, precautionary. But when he comes back, do you think he's going to get a chance there? If not, who do you think is best suited?
I don't think Ghost will get a chance there. I just don't think at the end of the day those two play together well. He and Provorov, I don't. And I think that it will be Braun, and it won't be Braun all game, because Braun can't play a whole game like Niskanen did on the top pairing and not have problems. But he could start the game and finish the game on the top pairing, and in between they'll move around some guys. But I think it's going to be Braun. I don't think they have any other choice.
Interesting. Do you think trade deadline pickup is in the future there?
It's hard. I mean, again, I don't want to kill Fletcher here, but, you know, he did sort of act like, yeah, you know, we'll probably be able to get somebody. But you could see how hard it is to get somebody. And you can't get anybody from a Canadian team unless you're going to have that guy sit for 14 days. And maybe it's 7 days now. But so, you know, what will be left in the season after a guy quarantines and you get him? 7 games, 8 games. That's all you're going to have him for. Like, that's not worth it. Yeah. So I can't tell you they're going to be able to get somebody for that spot. So far, they haven't been able to. That's
a great point. And actually, I wanted to bring this up earlier. I'm sorry, Craig, I want to hear your comments first, and I'm going to bring this up afterwards. I got it written right here. Craig, what do you think about Provorov and kind of searching for a role with a young defenseman? So we're searching for either a young guy, like he's saying, and then Braun, who we know can do it. He's done it in the past. Well,
I think Russ hit the nail on the head again, obviously. I think you move Myers in there, you know, sparingly. And it depends on their, you know, situation and time in the game, right? So penalty kill, power play, all those things play into effect. But who's your shutdown pairing? Who's going to be logging big minutes, and you want balance back there. Especially when you have forwards, you want to get the puck in the forwards' hand, so to speak. You need puck movers, you need balance. So whenever you have, a 1A and a 1B type guy, you don't pair them very often, only in certain situations. So you need that balance. So it's going to be very, very challenging across the board for some NHL franchises here to make sure that they have, the right players in the right spots. And I think that's why the taxi squad is going to be so important, because if one of your key guys go down, then it's automatically, hey, you've got a role to fill in a shortened season, in an intense season. So it's going to be interesting to see how NHL teams definitely juggle personnel issues.
Yeah.
Actually, I got a taxi squad thing to mention.
Sure.
Since Craig mentioned it.
Perfect.
So if I wanted to choose, I would choose Yegor Zamula over a guy like Nate Prosser every time.
Sure.
Nate Prosser is that typical guy that NHL GMs like to have around because they could say he's experienced. But the problem is this season's like a sprint. And for a guy like Nate Prosser, that's not good, because the more games that you play together, the worse he's going to play, if he gets to play at all. And so I would rather have Zamula on the taxi squad because he's got great legs. He, at the beginning of scrimmaging and camp, I saw additional speed and I saw a better hockey IQ than he even had before, which I thought was great in the World Juniors last year. I thought he played better than Romanoff at times. And they didn't even think of using him that way until all of a sudden he started scoring. But we all like to say, well, he's kind of lanky. Look, Braden Coburn was lanky his whole career. I think Zamula just might be one of these lanky defensemen. We see plenty of them. It doesn't mean they're not strong. Noah Dobson's never going to put on tremendous weight, but you can get stronger. Ron Hextall used to talk about that. Gorilla Monsoon used to joke about tendon strength in the WWF back in the day, and as for wrestlers. But there is some truth to that. And Zamula, yesterday I thought was moving the puck really well. I thought he maybe only forced one cross ice pass, but he can make some really good passes. Mm-hmm. And I thought his hockey IQ was really on display, jumping into the play. And otherwise now, people responded on Twitter and said, hey, we read some things that maybe weren't so great a couple of days ago when the Flyers were scrimmaging then too. And, my answer to that would be, well, this is still a young guy and this is what camp is all about. And You're supposed to get better through camp, and he has.
Absolutely. I feel like people always have a hard time understanding that you're looking at a progression, especially with a guy like Zamula. If the Flyers weren't so deep, and quite frankly, even though they're missing a piece on D in that top four, they're still a deep team. I mean, they have Robert Haig, who we're not even talking about, and Friedman, who would be a normal bottom pairing. No, yeah, and that's 7 and 8, right? But I don't disagree with you, right? If the right role becomes available, right? If an offensive guy goes down, then all of a sudden Zamula becomes a lot more tempting. You don't want to put
Haig or Friedman in that role.
Right, exactly. And I think it would be very interesting to see a Provorov, even Zamula pairing, even for one game, or even for moments of the game, just because maybe that's something they will test over time. I think Zamula's patience as a young player allows him to maybe play a little bit of ice time with there, but I just worried he'd be getting killed.
And to be honest, and I know there's probably people that will listen to this and watch it and, scream, well, what about Gostisbehere? My answer would be, we know what he is. I could scratch him on most nights and be fine. Even that first scrimmage, I saw no improvement over what he was last year. I still felt he was lacking confidence. He was still missing in the net. I feel like he's going to continue to do that for as long as he's a Flyer. Now, maybe if he changes, teams at some point, but it's hard with his salary. Maybe that'll help him. But right now, it's not helping him in Philly.
So this is what I was talking about earlier. So I was actually listening to the Nasty Knuckles podcast. And for Craig, if you're not aware, Derek Settlemeyer used to be equipment manager for the Flyers, and Riley Cote used to be a player and assistant manager. They have a podcast here. So they get a lot of the Flyers players, and they just started, but they had Ivan Provorov on there. And it's a really good episode. I was listening to it and just thinking about him overall. And I was thinking about that scenario that if I'm Provorov, right, the defense doesn't have a leader. Matt Niskanen is gone. The defense leader, I say, outside of Provorov, it really is Provorov. It's Justin Braun, right? So it's Provorov and Braun. Those are your vets. Those are your voices in the room for the D. And if I'm thinking about it from Provorov's position, and I want to be the mantle, I want to probably not a C, but an A on my jersey. He doesn't seem like a captain necessarily, but as a leadership position, I would look at Ghost, somebody who's my friend, and I would say, well, I remember when we did play well together, right? I remember those days. And even if it wasn't real, even if I wasn't 100% sure what happened, I would probably communicate to the coach at the very least to try to get Ghost's confidence up, to be like, hey, you're playing on the top pairing with the best defender again, just like back in the day. And I was thinking about that a little bit. Do you think there's any truth
but
there?
I'll tell you what went wrong there. Yeah, I'll tell you what went wrong there. So when they did maybe play well was when Provorov sort of acquiesced because, all right, Gostisbehere scoring all these goals. So even if he misses the net once in a while, he's scoring goals. He has the better shot. You know, he'll be the point guy, and that's fine. But then all of a sudden when Gostisbehere was failing, even though Provorov doesn't have near the shot, he gets it on net every time, and he was scoring a lot of points, and he was all of a sudden creeping in and getting goals. And I think that's when everything changed. And I don't think Gostisbehere ever got back to being that guy where they could pair together evermore, because Provorov had basically too much ambition and good play to sort of play second fiddle to him. And I don't think he can do it anymore.
That's a really interesting point. Probably accurate. Sorry.
There's only one puck to go around too.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you want that, if you're that skilled guy and you want the puck, I hate to say it because they're teammates, but there is only one puck to go around. And you know, and we're going back to that balance. Do you want the Ghost, you know, like on a second pairing or third pairing? And do you want that little offensive, you know, spark plug and puck mover? Like it's hard. Well, it's got to be very, very difficult.
Yeah. And so enter Eric Gustafsson. And if he pulls it off, and I don't think he's the 60-point guy, I don't. But if he pulls it off, then Provorov doesn't have to worry about being that guy and playing in every single situation. And that helps him. But what if Gustafsson starts failing? Then they're going to go to Provorov again. Like, they're not going to go to Sanheim yet because he's just too young.
Well,
he's getting closer, but you know.
That's why I thought the obvious one was Myers. You know, maybe he's not ready, and maybe that pairing is great, but it's like there is no better option.
I meant to be the power play core. I meant to be the power play core.
Oh, well, power play wise, I think you nailed it on the Provorov hitting the net. Like, I think Gustafsson's shot, it might not be as much of a banger as Gostisbehere's. Like, Ghost brings a lot of heat on his shot, but Gustafsson has heat and he's very accurate.
He is
consistent.
Accurate.
Very consistent. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he'll keep those shots low too. So
now, as far as defense, I did see a huge flaw in that first goal last night. He's on the left side and he saw the puck was going over to the right, and he basically just sort of casually moved down and sort of acted like he was covering the left side for Hart, but there already was a flyer over there and there was nobody on the other side, and they had almost like a tic-tac-toe goal. And that's where you could try and tell me all day long that Gustafsson plays better defense than we think. And no, I think he plays the lack of defense that I know, unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't think he was brought in to play that top pairing. I think he was brought in to try to help the power play.
No, but he is going to be on the ice for goals. That's my point.
Yeah.
In that scrimmage, he was on the ice for a goal already.
Yeah.
Early on.
That's
my point.
So, all right. So we're getting down to the hour. I want to get down to this last topic. So I mentioned this before we started. So Craig's favorite team is Boston Bruins. Obviously, I grew up a Flyers fan. Russ, I know you obviously write about the Flyers and heavily, but I know you grew up a Rangers fan as well.
Yep,
I wanted to talk about the Metro Division. The teams are kind of solidifying now. We're actually getting puck drop. As of recording this, the Flyers dropped the puck, I think, to the first game of the season against the Penguins. So, you know, we're about 2 days away from puck drop. I'm going to throw it around. We'll do most improved, most regressed, and who you think your top four would be in the division. I'll let Russ, I'll let you go first on this one, then we'll go to Craig.
Most improved. That's a good one. You know, I'm going to take a stab and go Capitals. I know some people are down on the Capitals, but I'm a big Samsonov fan. So I'm going to say Capitals most improved. As far as the four that are going to make it, I think the Islanders are a lock. I'm going to say the Flyers are going to make it, but it doesn't mean they won't have some shaky moments. Boy, I'm going to say the Capitals are going to make it, and it's interesting because it's hard to count Boston out of a playoff, and it's hard to count the Penguins out of a playoff. And I'm going to count the Rangers out because I don't like their defense enough, even though I think the world of Shesterkin. I think they could miss out in this playoff scenario. Push comes to shove. I'm going to say in what I think is Tuukka Rask last year that Boston still gets in.
That's what was that? Washington, Boston, Philly, and the Islanders.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see who did you think regressed the most?
Who regressed the most? I don't know if anybody did. I mean, it's a strong division.
Yep.
I don't think anybody did.
I like that answer. All right, Craig, what do you think?
Well, I don't know if this makes for good TV, but I agree with Russ.
Don't do that. That's death.
No. From a regression perspective, I just think the Penguins, they're so well known for making all the right moves at the trade deadline and having impact players come in, and it's just, have they done enough? And sending, I'm very, very surprised that they sent Sam Poulin back to Sherbrooke. Like, he's going to be on the move. I know he's 19. He didn't make World Juniors. I'm very surprised at that. And then to send, I think they should have probably given him some games. I think he's going to be a great player. It's just,
I don't know why they wouldn't look at him. I agree with you on that, Craig. I don't know why they wouldn't look and at least, if nothing else, give him 2-3 games just to spark him. It can't hurt.
No. And I went on the record saying, and I interviewed Tebow at the Q draft that year. And I said, listen, this kid's going to be in the NHL at 19. He's just that good and physically strong. And Jocelyn, who is his godfather, believe it or not, basically said, well, that'd be good for Sam, but not the greatest for us. Obviously, Sherbrooke loaded up for a President's Cup run last season here in the Q, but I'm really not kind of unsure of what Pittsburgh's doing right now. And
next time you see Tebow, Craig, ask him at an All-Star game on media day. He wore an FC UK shirt and he wouldn't explain what it meant, and nobody could say what it meant. And I felt like he was having a little fun with everybody because he had that kind of personality. So maybe ask him about that.
I will. And he's he's just an incredible guy, and always a smile on his face. And
he was great. He was a great goalie too.
Yeah, he was, and he didn't get the credit that he deserved. But from a Bruins perspective, I don't know what went on. I think you can read about it, about Chara and all that. I see where the direction where they want to go with bringing Zaboral and Lozon and really, trying to get younger players back in the lineup. They're going to struggle with a Pastrnak. They're really going to struggle early on. And, everyone says, oh, well, they're a one-line team. Well, I think Cash is going to make a big impact and a big splash this season, but are they good enough on the back end?
Craig Smith will help them too when Pastrnak
big time. But now they got Smith with Coyle. So, I would move Smith up with Cash and Krejci.
I would too.
And just say, okay. And then Coyle's so versatile, he can play with anyone. Yeah. Anyone's going to get points with Charlie Coyle. But on the back end, everyone's so high on McAvoy. I am too. But he makes decisions sometimes that cost you.
He's still young. We have to remember how young he is. He had a lot thrust on him. And I feel like people have anointed him before he's gotten there, even though I'm a huge Charlie McAvoy guy. So I'm with you. By the way, I have no faith in Zaboral. Zero faith.
Mm-hmm. Didn't he walk away from the game a couple years ago? Didn't he try to do that?
I don't think he did. No, I don't think he did. But I love Lawson. Lawson does have a lot of piss and vinegar in him, and I've always liked that. it is going to be hard for their back end, though. You're right. I mean, that's where they're going to feel it. And I like Matt Grzelcyk. I'm a Grzelcyk guy. I have no problem with Grzelcyk. But again, not having Krug, not having Chara, you're missing a lot of leadership there.
Well, and puck moving ability, really.
Oh yeah.
And Grzelcyk, he's a good puck mover.
He's not Krug, though.
He's not Krug. And everyone's trying to pump his tires up to be the next Krug. Well, he's not Krug. And I just, Tuukka Rask, I think this is going to be his last season. I don't know if they're going to get anything done throughout. If I'm the Bruins, I'd leave him alone, let him play. Really.
That's what I wouldn't even talk to him about.
No, not even talk contract extension now at all.
Leave it alone.
And leave it alone. And just let their players play. And really, you talk about their window and their core group of players. It's closing, and it's closing very, very fast. So, I saw Zaboral play a lot in St. John. He is capable. It's just about, keeping it simple and making the little plays, but it's his instincts and his puck moving ability and just poor decisions through the neutral zone jumping in.
And I saw that even in the AHL.
Exactly. And Lauzon, the thing about Lauzon is his ability to play both sides. He can play right and left.
Yeah, that's
very versatile, which is a good thing. So again, I see Washington surprising. The Islanders, you mentioned Noah Dobson. I think he's going to have a breakout season.
I love Noah Dobson.
He's just a tremendous young man and a hell of a hockey player. I think they're going to be a big surprise along with the Flyers. And I just want to go on record here and say this. I think one of the biggest losses for the NHL is the loss of Johnny Boychuk. And I really hope and wish he's doing well. I hate to see Johnny Boychuk out of the game because of the injury. Yeah,
he's a good guy.
Yeah. And do you think that loss is going to affect them? I mean, he barely played last year, from my understanding, especially the second half.
This is the misnomer. All right. So he did not barely play because, like, in the last game, he played a lot on the penalty kill, especially in the playoffs. So, like,
he's a leader.
He's a leader. Was he just gutting it out? If he was, that's amazing. But I think he played more than people realized because of the way he left the game now. But if you go back and look at the minutes and where he played a fair amount.
And you think they're a lock? You think the Islanders are still a lock?
Yeah, they're a lock. Yeah.
You don't think what about their struggles at the end of last year? You don't think it's a reflection? And I don't mean in the playoffs.
Unfortunately, I don't want to be the guy to parrot Lou, but I think they can get past it with the differential in the regular season. I do think they're going to have to make some moves if they ever want to get further in the postseason. But I think for the regular season, I think they've got it figured out.
Yeah, you think they're deep enough, Russ?
Offensively or just in general?
In general. To go all the way.
Oh, to go all the way? Not yet.
No.
If they were able to get like performances out of Koivula and Wahlstrom at some point, I might feel better because then I feel like the offense would be a little better taken care of. I still think they are going to be looking for goals at times. But if Eberle kicks it into gear again and Nelson at least gets his 20 and Barzal steps up a little now that he got his raise, they still could go all the way. I mean, again, will Sorokin overtake Varlamov? Not at the beginning. I mean, Trotz knows Varlamov, so he's going to give him every opportunity to keep his job, but it might become inevitable like it did with the Rangers and Shesterkin, but that could take, in a 56-game season, that could get taken to like game 35, right? So maybe that's what it would have to happen in my mind for them to be able to get to the Stanley Cup. If Sorokin did the same thing Shesterkin did last year, then I would change and say, yeah, you know what? That might be enough.
Do you think Barzal? I think he's going to have a big season with the contract stuff all
as big as he's
him.
allowed to have, because he's never going to score that 80, 85 points under Trotz. That's the problem, and I think he knows it. And so he's got to sort of like grit it a little bit and get his 60, 65 and just get him at the right time and help him win, because I just don't think that system allows you to get much more.
But it allows you to win hockey games. Right?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, he gets the most out of his talent, that's for sure. And I noticed we didn't talk about the Hurricanes at all, which is a team probably a goaltender away from being
I hate their goaltending. I love their defense.
Their D is fantastic.
If they're a team that could get edged out in the end from not making the playoffs, I do think that's what's going to happen to them. I know they look like they're close to the cup, and I think they are, but they really needed to get a goalie, and I think they're really going to suffer from not having that goalie.
I think for sure that's going to happen. So is there, I actually have very similar answers to both of you. So it's a little boring, right? But is there any team that, like, to me, it seems to me on paper, if I was to look at any of the teams, the Capitals and the Flyers are the ones where I look at it and they go, okay, and maybe the Islanders too, where you have everything on paper, and that doesn't always matter. But is that kind of how you guys see it? Where like the Flyers seem to have everything except for maybe they lost a defenseman now, but they have their goalies, they got their centers, they got their defensemen, they got a deep enough D. Like the Canes, you said they have everything, but they don't have a goalie. They're just kind of missing that element. The Capitals are maybe aging in certain positions. Same with the Bruins to some degree. Maybe
in certain positions. I'll tell you, I saw at times where the Capitals just didn't have that spark last year in games, especially in games against the Flyers. But I feel like Holtby was a part of that. I think he was sort of deadening them. And Samsonov is a kind of guy that will give a team a spark with some very athletic saves. And I think getting Anderson saved their bacon. I think that was massive. Yes. And they, when they thought they were going to have Lundqvist, they bulked up on the blue line, and we probably don't give them enough credit for some of the depth they now have on that blue line. It may not be sexy. And look, John Carlson, again, people only look at his offense, but he leads the league in hits and block shots. He's right up there, and he won't ever get credit for it.
No, and he's a great two-way guy. He really, really is.
But he just doesn't. Nobody looks at him that way. No. But if you look at the numbers, like I was shocked. Like 2 years ago when he had all these blocks, I was like, wow, he's really doing a lot more.
Well, it shows why they won a championship. I mean, he was the guy doing it, right? And I love the Chara pickup. I love the Craig Anderson after losing Lundqvist.
You the Flyers could have had Carlson, right?
What do you mean?
Well, back in the day, they traded that first round pick that became John Carlson to the Capitals.
Oh, yeah, of course, for Steve Eminger. For Eminger. Steve Eminger. I'll never
when that happened at the draft. I was like, wow, this is awful. Like I just
oh man, I remember we thought we were getting a defenseman that was more developed, and it was a mess.
The two guys I thought they were going to get were either Markstrom or Carlson. And they got Eminger.
And they got the one guy who didn't play in the NHL at the end. Fantastic. All right. Well, this was a really great episode. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Before we go, Craig, do you have anything you want to give a shout out to? Anything you're working on? Anything you want to tell people to follow up on you? Maybe.
Well, I just I really hope the Q and the CHL can get going. I know the Dub has kind of set a date that they're aiming at. Right now, the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League and Quebec-based teams are going to start bubbling and get some games in. Here in the Maritimes, our numbers are up. So right now, it's fingers crossed. Hopefully, we can get some hockey going here in junior hockey. But as far as my platform goes, it's just really enjoying telling stories from Maritime-based kids and those players across the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, trying to get into the National Hockey League, which it's a lot of fun to cover.
That's awesome. And make sure you guys follow Craig online as well. What's your Twitter?
At Eags37. So EAGS 37.
All right, awesome. And
I'll follow you. I don't follow you. So there you go.
Yeah, I'll retweet both of you guys. And Russ, same question for you. I know you're always working on content. If you want to give a shout out, and a shout out to your book. Should have mentioned it a little bit more there as well.
That's all right. Anybody can go to Amazon.com and see the books I wrote, or you could just DM me, and I have them all for sale here. I can sign them and whatever. So there's that. Sportsology.com. I write for a couple of different sites. There's Full Press Hockey. There's Go GTS. That's a collectible site where I still am writing about youngsters and prospects. That's 3 different sports. But Full Press Hockey, even Full Press Baseball. I write some baseball too as a Met fan. But I cover the league too, so don't worry. I get Philly stuff in there. But I do put out a lot of content, and there'll be a lot more this year. I have a few things on the back burner for that I can't talk about yet. But no books this year. Right now, I had 2 released during the pandemic, and I'm going to have to work on getting those sold. So I'll slow down the books a little and pump out the other content. But much like Craig, when people go to Sportsology, you're going to see some NHL content, but you are going to see, if it's NHL content, it may be more prospect based than anything. That's a lot of what I'm still writing on my site.
And Russ, I mean, I listen to you on Hockey Buzz regularly over the years. I mean, you're into most sports from what I understand, right? Like there's not really much you don't watch.
Like I'm a Jets fan, right? And so that's the one where I probably write about most as, a fan, even though I don't get crazy about it. Although I might if they try and hire Doug Peterson, but we won't talk about that here.
That would be awesome.
For baseball, I do write about it across the board. I've been a big baseball guy over the years, and most of my books, actually all of them, are baseball or hockey. So those are the ones I focus on. Basketball, I don't do much on. Very little. Once in a while, someone will write for me and cover some more, but that's a weakness of mine that I've just sort of let go last few years.
You're spreading yourself thin there, Russ.
You can't. It's just too much. Yeah.
All right. Well, this was an awesome episode. I'm really thank you so much for joining me, guys, and thank you for everybody for listening. It's exciting. Hockey's back. Flyers are back. Hopefully, we're watching a Stanley Cup happen. No offense to you guys. Well, actually, Russ, I guess you're kind of rooting now.
Listen, if I can cover a Stanley Cup, I love
exactly. Cups. It's great. And thank you everybody for listening. Check out our team store. Check out the YouTube page. Always subscribe on Spotify, everything else. And thank you everybody for listening. We really appreciate it and appreciate all the subscriptions, the followers. Everything is amazing. Remember to take care of yourselves. Watch out for COVID and remember to always stay